have one either.
All right, see what happens in race number 1. The Jonathan Shepherd to kick off today's card. Race number 2, the funny side. We did manage to get 4 entrants here, and can't knock Gary Contessa with 1 scratching. Don't know is it not. He helped make the race go, so we appreciate Gary doing that. Is Rumble Young Man Rumble? You do know where Rumble Young Man Rumble comes
I don't, but I feel like you're about to tell me.
Johnny, do you want to discuss the Rumble Young Man Rumble?
What year?
Muhammad Ali.
Okay, that's fair.
Muhammad Ali, a man.
That is something that I would be on the fringe of.
Everybody should know
yes.
about Muhammad. I was watching.
I've been to the museum.
Is it Antiques Roadshow? I'll watch with my mom sometimes, and it's great where people get the different. They're watching. They get things priced and different things. A guy came in and he had a double autographed picture of Ali from when he was still Cassius Clay. He signed it as Cassius Clay from Louisville. He used to talk about how the kids, and I know you preach this, Johnny, used to see Muhammad Ali training and running around the park, and they would follow him around, and he was saying how Ali would take him to his house. And they, give them all something to eat, and he would lecture them on how they have to go to school and do things, and then he'd tell everybody how great he was.
That seems like something you would do.
Yeah, well, I would be happy to. I think the kids should stay in school. And he would tell them how great they are and stuff, and he truly was the greatest, and his nickname. But I'm always up for a good Muhammad Ali story, and so. Like the name.
All right.
All right. We'll take a look at Toga Twist, the horse who I imagine will be favored in race number 2, 1 for 2 for Jeremiah. And I imagine his firster can probably run as well. I know this race didn't come super fast, but the second place finisher improved 21 buyer points, breaking her maiden in a subsequent, or actually running second, taking a tough beat in her subsequent start. And I'm not trying to beat Toga Twist in here.
That's completely fair. This horse ran very well first time out and was super game, able to be forwardly placed and show that good early speed, and got into that little bit of a dogfight too in the stretch here. You mentioned the improvement with the horse that came back to finish second. Yet again at a short price. A couple of others from that race have not necessarily improved, but have run similar numbers to suggest that it's a figure that does hold up. And here, I just wanted somebody who at least has shown they can rate ever so slightly, has gone a little bit further than this, but I do worry that with Minor Inconvenience, that number is a little bit bolstered by the wet track.
Well, as we take a look at Minor Inconvenience, my problem with that horse would be that this was an off-the-turf race with absolutely no competition whatsoever. The heavy favorite for Bill Mott did, look at it again. The heavy favorite for Bill Mott did no running in this race whatsoever. So I think this is the one that Mott had, or maybe, no, Dutrow. The dub horse was a Dutrow horse, the Obliterator. I think it ran second. And I just have no confidence that this race is really something that's likely to be repeated. But you're right. From a buyer scale, she ran well. I'm interested to see what we get from 4th and 1. Going out for Jeremiah Engelhard of Maxfield, they paid $240,000 for, and I'm sure that he wanted this race to go for Toga Twist. But my guess is this one's probably a bit of a runner as well, and I'm going to guess this one could be the cheap competition for Jeremiah's other horse.
Yeah, New Sire off to a hot start with his 2-year-olds. He's firing at 28% so far, and the purchase price seems to indicate that they liked the physical and seems to be working well.
All right, race number 3 on the turf. We'll take a look at Vacation Dance and Rusi. And I thought Vacation Dance ran well in this race. I mean, nobody was being set who's entered over the weekend here and ran fine. But I actually want a horse that's finished behind both of them in Clancy Fancy, who back in June finished 4th. But that race was kind of on the rail in the backstretch after breaking well, but was 3 to 5 wide and lost a lot of ground. The race was dominated up front. And I thought Clancy Fancy, getting a rider switch to Joel Rosario, who was pointing out rider stats. I think it was David. Somebody, when it was David or somebody else, that the only rider that's been riding at over 20% this meet is Joel Rosario, who's having a sensational meet. And I'm going to take Clancy Fancy over all of them. You went in a different direction, though, with Bosun.
Yeah, and I get the appeal of Clancy Fancy because he's had such limited opportunities to turf sprint, and he's run fairly well in both of them. But with Bosun, it looks like he is a horse that's going to be a short price that's coming out and trying to go up in conditions
race, guys.
Rather than one that I think there are some very legitimate excuses for him not winning in his couple of starts where he has been on the grass sprinting. He's been favored in all of them. He finished second to Urala, who came back to improve, and then win yet again going through conditions against Open Company. He was running against Friend of the Devil prior to that, a horse that came back to win a New York Stallion Series Stakes. And this was the spot where he got a decent trip over Courtly Banker, who did come back to win. And while others out of this race did not run particularly well, I think that he's one that even his losses look perhaps a little bit better than they might suggest as he does try to step up hypothetically in class.
Okay. Joe Sharp's had a great meet. He might win. I don't like him at all. I think when you say he could have won his races, I think the reason that he was less effective in some prior starts is that those races featured slower paces that held together, and they don't seem that slow on paper, but the paces held together a bit in those races. The Friend of the Devil's a speed, Warolo's a speed. Last time out, he caught a race that just completely incinerated at the end, and I think that Courtney Banker was reasonably close to the pace, and he obviously improved, as you said, but on the ledge, as you were alluding to, did not run well in there. I think the fifth-place horse ran better, but I think it was a pace. To me, he's a pace-dependent horse, and I'm not saying he's not good enough to win it, because I don't think he's not talented, but he's a horse that probably does his best running when it's a fast pace, and it is very hard to look at this race with I'm Wide Awake being the main speed and perhaps Clancy Fancy being a stalker. There's not a lot of pace on paper in this race, and that to me is a huge problem for Bosun.
There isn't, and that's a completely fair argument. I like that he was able to have a little bit more tactical position in that last start relative to the ones prior to that. But as you mentioned, it could just be a function of how the paces were developing in front of him, where he ended up being in the right kind of position in that last start. But if you worry about pace, do you worry about that with Clancy Fancy as well, or do you think he'll try to have the speed he did in his first turf start?
I think the reason to like Clancy Fancy is that he has the speed to be forward in this race, and I think that's why I actually like him. He has more speed than the other ones, and hopefully they'll look to take advantage of it. We'll see how things work out in race number 3. Race number 4, we'll take a look at Ballooney winning last time, and he's a horse that I don't think I've ever been right on in my life. I probably bet him in some races when he's lost, and I feel like I always pick against him when he wins. He ran fine last time. I don't have a problem with him. I put him second, but I always just feel like with the connections and such, he's a little bit overbet in his races. But I guess when you look at his total oeuvre, it's not like he's really been that short a price that many times. And when he has been, he's actually delivered, and he's paid some square prices. You got to kind of admire this horse. I just didn't want to put him on top.
I think given the connections, we have higher expectations than maybe were realistic of this horse coming in for Chad Brown. But if you look at his body of work, you could make the argument, save for the Woodhaven, that he's a horse that just performs better on Lasix. There's that one race that does stand out of him getting the win, but then the rest of them you can kind of say, okay, he was running a little bit better when he had the opportunity to be running on Lasix. It also is class dependent, so I can understand
I would
that one
disagree
too.
with that because he ran a fast enough race when he was in the Colonel Liam before he won the Woodhaven, and then you're talking about races where he was 15-1 and 14-1. He got in the Pennine Ridge where there was absolutely no
Better
pace,
horses.
and then he's running against Talk of the Nation and More Than Looks, eventually win a Breeders' Cup. So I hear what you're saying, but I would say it more coincides with, you could say the figures went up, but he also was going from 3 to 4 when they went up. So listen, he's got Lasix. The Lasix isn't a factor, at this point. So yeah, I don't have a problem with him. I know you picked Johnny's Fireball. Why don't we take a look at his race 2 back?
I think he's one that I don't have a big excuse for this horse last time, and that is a concern to me. But overall, looking at his races at Churchill, and even before that, he just has the back class of this group as running into graded stakes type company. And I thought that he was one that could be a little bit tactical too. I don't see him on the lead in this race early on, but I thought that he wouldn't be too far off of things in here. And I think that he's just one that's getting some significant class relief from his prior races.
I have no argument. He obviously does. He was running an $80,000 optional claimer last time, and now he's in a $40,000 claimer. So I'm not going to argue with any of that. My problem with him a little bit is what you alluded to, what happened in his last race. He's already also been scratched earlier at the meet, so that kind of bothers me a little bit about him. But I'm not going to argue what you said. I think what you said is absolutely fair. He's run some good races. He's run against better horses, and if he shows up with a solid effort, he might be better than these horses.
Well, if you just look at this year, outside of that last race, you have Corruption, who he's running second to, who's okay.
Oh, you're talking about Corruption. Right. But he also did no running in the Muniz. And, he didn't run particularly well in the Connolly at 1.5 miles. I don't know. I don't trust him. I hear what you're saying. He can win. I thought there were so many horses that could win this race that I just had to leave some horses out I think that can win, and he happens to be one of them. But I'm not going to be surprised when I'm wrong in here, and I don't even know if it's wrong. I think the 2 can win, the 3 can win. I don't even think the 1's totally impossible. The 4 can win, the 5 can win, the 6 can win, the 7 to win. And I guess you just have to make some decisions at some point, sort of who you're going to take. And as far as Son of a Birch, I thought stretching out was a little odd, but the reality was I thought he ran okay in that race.
He did.
I know that Sherlock's Jewel won, but I thought he ran a reasonably good race in there. So I was kind of interested to see what he'd do in here, catching a slightly easier field than he met last time, and he'd be a fair enough price. I don't love him in here. Listen, Touch Revenge can win. Flying P is certainly going to pull out all stops as they're one behind Mike Rapoli and Klarovich for the title going into the last week. All of them want to win, and I'm sure they'll try to win. I feel, though, his recent form, I didn't love his races. I didn't think he ran badly though in the Nantastic Beach race. To be fair, because I don't know, but the race was sort of fairly run. I know horses closed, but wasn't there a huge price speed that finished fifth in there? I just don't know how good he is.
I
but he
wonder
can
if he's
win.
going to end up being the leader in here early on in
The
this
pace
race. Tut's
setter?
Revenge, because I think
supposed to
that he's
be.
one that he does a little bit better when he's on the lead. But also, I
I
get putting
agree.
him in this spot. He's a 9-year-old gelding. He's approaching the $1 million
100%.
mark. Where are you going to go?
100%. Like 100. They only claimed him for 60, so it's not as though. No. I think that's perfectly fair. I think Irad will go with Wonderful Justice, but I agree with you. I think that Tut's Revenge is faster. I bet Wonderful Justice last time he was awful.
Yeah, he was
He
not
was
good.
awful in that race. But sometimes they bounce. Listen. I flirted with Bruce. And
Who
I
was
think I
getting a
picked
big
him when
jockey
this race,
change.
before this race got. Well, it's a huge rider change, and the truth is, he's run some races fast enough to at least be somewhat competitive.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be a huge price in here. So I put him third. He's going to be in my tickets. I thought he was a little bit much to put on as a top pick, but honestly, at the end of the day, I have trouble. If somebody wants to pick Fredo here, they're on their own. But
Other
after
than
that, and
that,
even he's not.
If you
10
go back in
lengths out of it.
time, yeah.
Well, he wasn't the Godfather. Race number 5, and we'll break after 5. We'll take a look at Fiddling Felix running second. And I think the question of this race is, what do you do with this horse that, ran sort of 5 okay races? And to be fair, his earlier races when he ran a 70 buyer were as a 2-year-old. So I don't think it's that outrageous he got this crazy fig in this race. The problem is, where did it come from, and what happened last time, and what are we going to get today?
And aren't you just tired of him? A horse that's had those opportunities. He's been a short price in his last 2. I agree with what you're saying about the 84 buyer 2-back not being something that completely came out of nowhere. But at the same time, I could see somebody running a race that's comparable to that in here. And there are some interesting first-time starters as well as horses that are a little bit more lightly raced than he is. I don't like him at all. I didn't like how far back he was last time. I thought that he was one that just ran into a live first-time starter. And then Discotheque was in that race as well. And he's one that's had so many opportunities. And I think I found one
Well,
of the
not that many on the dirt, but okay.
I think I've found one of the biggest exaggerations of a chart comment of a stumble in his last race that I've seen of all time.
Yeah,
There is no
I
stumble.
didn't think he really stumbled either, but one person's opinion. I don't particularly disagree with you on that. I don't particularly like Discotheque. I think Fiddling Felix is very, very dangerous for Fernando Abreu, and I just think in all likelihood, it is important, I think, to remember that Fernando ran him back 13 days after he claimed him last time. So after he runs this huge race, I'm not a big bounce guy, but one of my problems is I don't believe that good horses bounce. I think one of the things that differentiates the best horses is I think as horses get better and better, you go up the scale, they become more reliable.
Sure.
So, but on the other hand, you're talking about a maiden that runs this huge number. So I don't think it's that outrageous to say maybe he regressed off that big effort 13 days later. Now he comes back 27 days later. So I do think you'll get a better race. And I think it makes him a lot more dangerous than you do. I could be wrong, but that's what I see with him. What is the grand gesture story?
I just wanted somebody new. This one, a foal to Damon's Mount, who was that very precocious type, winning his first 2 starts as a 2-year-old, and then there's another full sibling who did win first time out in her dirt debut as a 4-year-old this year. So the fact that this one is a 3-year-old going out for the first time didn't bother me quite as much as it would have if that other sibling did not exist. Mott also has the 2-year-old full sibling Sunkissed, who had a little bit of a rough trip first time out that ran on the 16th, and it just seems as though this one working well coming into this spot, and I just wanted somebody new that I haven't seen before.
Okay, but you're guessing with a short price. Listen, how about it? I got it. I get you. There's no killers in here. I went in a different direction in this race. I'm interested in Solutions in this race, who I think ran very well. And I'll tell you something. I know it was a 5-horse field, but Be Real was like 1 to 2 or something in there, a first-time starter for Mike Rapoli and Todd Pletcher. And this horse dueled every step of the way with that one. And while falling apart late, and the winner made that big run up the rail to get the job done, I thought this horse actually ran really well and took some money in that race. Dave decided to stretch out the turf the next time. He doesn't want to go long, and he doesn't want to run in turf. That race was run in the rain. That race collapsed. So I think it's actually kind of an interesting running line. And now comes back in a race where I think he could be interesting, and I like Solutions in this race. I'm hoping he's the speed, but I think there's a possibility he'll have to deal with Irrelevant outside of him, a horse that chased a quick pace on the turf. I don't know what to do with Irrelevant, but I put this horse second.
I
like
don't
the name.
either. And it seems as though this one should handle switching over to the dirt. I have to know it all. Audrey, who's your Empire Distaff winner, going 1 1/8 here. And this is a lot to pay for an Instilled Regard, who has a little bit of pedigree on the dam side, and I think will appreciate a little bit more distance. But I don't know. The pace was hot last time out, but it didn't collapse.
Well, it's a turf race. I mean, the idea is whether or not this horse, the dam was an 86 buyer in the dirt and a 59 buyer in turf. The asked question is, did he run in the turf because the race came up and he wanted to get a race, or did he not trust his horse in the dirt, a horse that worked very quickly? I think irrelevance pretty scary here. We'll see. I don't split hairs. You've also got to cultivate a firster for Chad Brown on the outside with Flavien Prat, who's been putting up incredible numbers. He and Jose Ortiz have the best numbers over the last couple of weeks here. And I don't have any idea, but Chad rarely, first time starter, maiden claimer, dirt sprint, 1 for 9 for Chad Brown. Saratoga, 0 for 1. I was surprised to see that.
Yeah, I looked overall at maidens at Saratoga with 3-year-old and up, first-time starters, dirt sprints, 1 for 14.
Yeah, he doesn't win with a lot of older horses.
57% in the money, so I didn't want to say they don't run.
I'm not going to be surprised if he does. We'll see what happens in what I think is a pretty contentious 5th. We'll come back with the late pick 4 after a quick break.
You bet with Naira Bets. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime. Download the Naira Bets app to play today and get a $200 deposit bonus. Watch live horse racing, get expert picks, boost your bankroll with weekly promotions, and hone your handicapping skills with exclusive tips and tutorials. Download the Naira Bets app now. Sign up now to claim your $200 deposit match bonus. You bet with Naira Bets.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah Al-Badwi and Andy Serling, day 35 as we kick off the last week, a 6-day week. Of course, we're racing through Labor Day, and an exciting weekend of stakes coming up. That Jockey Club is going to be the best race for the older horse division this entire year. It's going to be a tremendous, tremendous race. And we'll take a look at the horse you have on top, a horse that I have third in the Hero Code, 2 races back before they got perhaps a little ambitious last time out and also got caught wide in that race. You probably wanted to be inside last time. So this is just a very logical horse. The problem is, Sarah, that you like this horse this day, and he ran super, and you just got run down by another horse, but it was 20-1 that day. And I know he's not going to be that short today, but he's kind of now an exposed horse. And the truth is that once they get exposed, sadly in racing, you very rarely get a second chance with a horse that you're smart about that you don't get the money with. And you were clearly smart with this horse this day. You didn't get the money, or you maybe had exact a bit. And he's 12-1 on the line. Now, maybe he'll be 12-1. I also think this might be a tougher field than he was in that day.
Would you call that a moral victory?
No, there's no moral victories at the racetrack. Anybody that thinks
I'm
they're
joking.
moral victories at the racetrack ain't betting.
Looking at this field, he's going to be a fair enough price. He's not going to be the price he was in that.
No, but
race
he's 12-1
back.
on the line,
But at
and
the same time,
I didn't think he'd be that big a price.
You have 2
but
different
that's-
coupled entries in here. You have a horse going out for Chad Brown that's on his own. You have a Cherie DeVoe horse. You have one for Tom Morley. You have a couple towards the outside that he might be a similar price
Speaking
to.
of which, coupled entries will be a thing of the past very shortly. Probably by the
officially.
time we get to October. I think it takes
Exciting.
30 days on the books or something. Penny Breakage also starting
good.
here on Monday.
Look at us go.
All sorts of things going on, but getting rid of entries. Anyway,
That's
sorry.
awesome.
I
No,
digress.
that's a
Go
very
ahead.
big announcement and exciting to hear about both of those things. So that's great. I think that he's going to be overlooked, given connections in this race. A couple horses that are taking that drop from maiden special weight to maiden claiming for the first time are a little bit less exposed. His trips on the turf prior to that last race that we took a look at were insane. He was really never given the opportunity to get into any sort of position whatsoever. And so maybe last time just against tougher company, and I thought that this was
He
a
was
race that
also
still
wide
fit him.
against a good rail last time. I have no problem with him whatsoever. I just worry about what's the value. And I also think there's a lot more going on in this race. For instance, I think Noguchi is the horse to beat. I know this horse is not favored because there are 2 entries. I'm going to be interested to see what price the entries go off in here. And obviously, the sooner we get rid of that disaster, the better off we are. This horse was a little wide in the first race. I actually thought ran pretty well with a little bit of trouble at the start. The rail was good that day. I think this horse makes sense stretching out to a mile as a first start, and I think the 3 is going to be very much the horse to beat in here.
Do you think that everyone else is going to get overlooked because you do have 2 entries that both make sense?
Well, do they? I mean, one of them is horse that did no running for Amelia Green with no particular turf pedigree to speak
But
of.
Battle Drum is
improved.
the other half.
I don't get Battle Drum at all. I don't know how anybody would like this horse. He doesn't win.
Okay.
He gets good trips. He doesn't seal deal. You don't like him either. I mean, you've got him fourth.
No, but,
maybe
I
yeah,
don't speak
maybe
for everyone,
well, it is I
apparently.
rather tease, and so in an entry, so you're probably right. The 2 entry, I don't know anything about Extra Sensory, but it's a Chad Brown firster running for 50,000. Probably not that sexy. Complex Agenda is the horse to like in here, and my suggestion to you would be to go back and watch the replay of this horse's last race. I mean, you're talking about a horse that ran okay in his debut behind Early Adopter, who's no superstar, but he's okay. And I think, but also, what I would say about the last race for Complex Agenda is the rider was a bit surprised at the 8th pole that he suddenly had horse. And as he broke from an outside post, a time when the rails were down, you wanted to be on the rail. Now, he did it. He was 2.5 wide in the first turn, 3 wide in the backstretch, 3 wide in the second turn, so he was against the track. But I also think there's a possibility that he could have finished a little bit closer in there. You should watch the race and decide for yourself. Anybody else to talk about here?
I thought that Got Stripes wasn't impossible, but just thought there were some better.
Where's
potentially.
when is I don't disagree, but when has he done any? He's 8-1. When has he done any running?
I don't know. I thought he had things that look a little bit against him in that last race, but at the same time, Hedge the Risk was just so much better.
I think it's just a better field than that one
Yeah.
too, don't you think? I,
Yeah.
mean, I do
Yeah,
at least.
fair enough.
And there's Retco has a million chances, but Retco actually does belong in here, and this is probably the weakest field that Retco's ever been in. Are you going to be shocked if he's effective here for Tom?
Shocked by anyone in this field? Not necessarily.
Picks up a rider change to Junior Alvarado. I think there's a lot of things to like
I wanted
about
to
him.
be a little more interested in Captcha, but I thought he got an okay trip last time.
Yeah, I didn't think he ran at all. Okay. Race number 7. So we'll talk about the entry to start with. You've got Baron of Sealand second. I actually preferred Freedom Trail, who ran a tough race the one time he ran in the dirt. And here's Baron of Sealand in a very murky February day. I know it was tougher last time, but I don't love the total dump job for this horse. Do you? And part of an entry that's going to get bet. If you like this horse, even if you like him, you got the other horse who can win, but you're just not going to get your price. That nightmare will soon be over.
This is an aggressive drop for a horse that maybe at face value you could say he just didn't appreciate the off-going in that last race where he was running against some okay company, and he was favored that day and just really didn't do any running whatsoever. But now to show up here, that tells me that something else has gone on
I
in
agree.
that time frame, and I have no idea what that might be or how it's going to affect how he runs today, but it tells me what connections are
He's
likely
eligible for
thinking.
non-winners at 2 New York bred races, and third place finishes in those races, get him half of the purchase price they're talking about here, and not to even try him in races like that. And, it's not even like he ran that badly last time against better horses. I agree. He's got
It's a
kind
red
of an
flag.
odor. And the thing is, I think both halves of the entry can win this race, but that means they're going to be even shorter. And you're talking about 2 horses that might be in the 4-1 range alone, or 2-1. And yeah,
Right.
you get the insurance of the other one, and maybe you're right, maybe I'm right about the 1 versus the 1A, but I still want to go down with the ship that I want to be on, and I think most horse players do.
And it's the other horse.
Yeah, we both picked the number 7 here. As you chase me, I can't believe anybody else likes this horse. Why don't you talk about him?
If you don't want to pick the entry on top, I don't really know where else to go in this
Really?
race. Yeah. That's,
Well,
that's kind of how I assessed
What about
it. of just-
Mugatu? Let's take a look at Mugatu on the outside. Why isn't this horse dangerous? Dropping down, coming here from Churchill, where I hear all the dirt races were just like grade 1s.
At the same time, I will say, whether you believe they were grade 1s or not, has he ever really run a race that's necessarily that fast?
Well, this one got a 78 buyer. He got a 72 buyer 4-back. He got a couple of 85 buyers in this field. So I would say, yes, he has. Now, whether or not I'm overly excited about the prospect of him running it here, the answer is yeah. I mean, in this race, he's actually got some of the fastest races of anybody. In fact, he probably, except for Freedom Trail on the turf, he does have glaringly the fastest race of anybody. And even though I didn't pick him anywhere and you didn't, I think that makes him a little dangerous, doesn't it?
I suppose. I mean, I just don't like the inconsistency with the horse.
I hear you. I hear you.
And I could be completely just overlooking him as one that makes sense on paper in here because if you don't trust the entry and you don't like As You Chase Me, there aren't that many places
I'll tell you
to go.
something interesting about Mugatu.
Tell
Here's
me.
like something you'll almost never see in the PPs. a horse with 2 mile and 3/16 races in his 12 race card. I mean, considering out of the Pimlico Special and the Preakness, it's not as though there's that many of them. It's kind of amazing. He
Pretty
actually
good bingo
has
card there,
2
yeah.
of them. Anyway, talk about As You Chase Me.
I just like this one getting a little bit more class relief. A horse who has that level of consistency that I don't feel as though I trust as much with a horse like Mugatu towards the outside. He's getting a rider change to Manny Franco in here, and I just thought that he's at least been showing up in some spots that are comparable to this one. Do I love this horse? No. If Baron of Sealand or Freedom Trail run a step, are they going to win? Probably.
Maybe.
Did I want to go with them on top with the aggressive drop in class that they're taking? Not so much.
You and I are on the exact same page. You basically stole the words out of my mouth. I completely agree with that. It may be a bad pick, but he's dropping. He's getting a rider switch, and you're right. I mean, okay, Solo Empire is the speed. I get it. He's cutting back to a mile. Maybe he'll get it done, but why should he get it done? He just
Right.
doesn't really finish his races. I think Funny Uncle's very dangerous. I think a big drop down for Flying P this week. I read Ortiz. I think he's super dangerous. I put him second.
Yeah, I have
I
him
don't
third.
want to bet him at 5-2 in this race. He could even be shorter, depending what how crazy they go for the entry.
Sure.
I'm sure David sort of fluctuated a bit on that. I think 6 hours in a day is dangerous, but I don't know. You know, he had a voided claim race for
How good is he?
16,000 to run that big figure, and he's completely unreliable because you draw a line through
That
that.
one's a
That's a
total outlier.
one-number horse. He's a low 60s buyer horse, and our horse is just faster and, going
he-
to be a bigger price.
He's not making a change in class level, whereas others are dropping down to his level.
No, I agree. And then there's Lou, right? What do you do with Lou? Joe Sharp, you know, is dropping this horse after the claim. He claimed this horse from Linda. This horse, I know, had a trouble start, but come on. And now the
There was
drop down.
nothing happening
And
last
he has
time.
absolutely no speed
Right.
whatsoever. We'll see. I agree with you. I think it's a tricky race. And you and I went for a horse just dropping in a tricky race. Race number 8, I liked Blanchette, Graham. And we'll take a look at Time to Dream. And I know this race came up slow, and I think you have to be careful because, you know, Craig had this race a bit faster. The 2-year-old races, this horse was really impressive. I mean, he got a reasonably good trip, but they weren't going that fast. He came home in 22 and change. I know that, you know, visuals can seem more impressive when you're not really thinking about how good the race was. But this horse, I thought, ran well enough. I'm not going to try to beat him, as opposed to, and we'll show Scratchett's video. You can go right to it if you want afterwards. As opposed to a horse like Scratchett that just walked on the front end in that race. And there's too many sprinters stretching out in here to think, Sarah, that's going to happen again for him. So I'm going to stick to the ones that have the form showing, and I'll take the one that I think can overcome slightly more adverse circumstance.
And I feel as though we're very much on the same page with the kind of trip that Scratchett was able to secure in getting this victory. And I do not want to take this horse at a short price in here. You got 12-1 last time. This horse was able to walk the dog on the front end and have enough towards the end of the race to win. The race came up a little bit quicker than some in this spot, but still not exactly a fast race
Time
overall.
from US has it much lowered, much more because of the pace.
And do you really think that this horse is going to get the same kind of trip? Absolutely not.
You
I
look
can't
at this
see it
race full of
happening.
horses that coming out of sprints
Well,
that have
it shouldn't
speed.
happen, let's
And
say that.
I agree with you. I agree. You know, word of warning. You know, if you look at Saturday's card, there's a lot of different riders coming in because riders are out of town, and many of them may not have gotten the notice that you're not allowed to use your horse's speed. So the possibility exists we could have some interesting races over the weekend. I agree with you. I'm not. I stuck in that direction with the horses with experience. What did I miss with Vernon Valley?
Probably nothing, but I just was not in love with who we've seen so far in this race. And looking at Mark Cassie's stats with the 2-year-old switching from dirt to turf and stretching out, he does pretty well. He's 9 for 40 over the past 5 years, 23%, 52% in the money with a $4.28 ROI. And there's not overwhelming turf pedigree for this horse, but there's some. And I thought that she's run pretty well in a couple of her starts so far. And maybe she's one that is going to be overlooked a touch instead of being bet on some of that dirt form, and she doesn't really have to improve that much switching over to the grass.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree. I didn't see any turf pedigree. I didn't see any reason, but why not take a shot in here? Maybe these two horses really aren't that good. It's too hard to tell. We'll see what happens in the P.G. Johnson name for the legendary trainer. And, you know, PG's long before your time, but of course, I think a lot of people remember him for Valponi, and, you know, Karen, his daughter, of course. Karen and Kathy, his 2 daughters, and it's nice every year that we can remember PG. I think a lot of racing fans remember a horse of his that was very popular that you would have liked named Kiri's Clown, and Kiri's Clown won the 13-horse Sword Dancer for PG going back some years. But PG trained so many good horses. Nasty and Bold is one that comes to mind. He was third behind Affirmed and Alidar in that Travers up here, but he was an extraordinarily good horse that PG trained, and obviously Valponi. And of course, PG used to go on and do when Harvey Pack would have a recap show of all the Breeders' Cup races. PG was his guest, and a lot of us enjoyed his somewhat occasionally acerbic tone on some of the races. And he was great. I mean, I didn't know him, but he was a real legend in this game. And I always think it's nice to remember. We remember a lot of horses and a lot of people that may have not been around even before me. PG was somebody who was around, and he was a force. He was a force in racing. In a lot of ways, and it's nice that we run this race for him, though I'm not sure why. I guess we have the with anticipation for the girls, but then again, PG trained a lot of very, very good fillies in his day. You'll see, you don't know them like I do, but I'll see those names of his horses show up in the second dams.
Yeah.
Another legend of the game making his way in, Ralph Thoreau Jr.
Oh, wow.
Making his way in. Ralph's father, Ralph Thoreau Sr., who some of you will remember, was the first race tracker I met as a kid.
Really? That's quite an honor
not horse
to be
players
that character.
and professional players, but I met him. He was a jocks agent in the mid to late 60s, and he was great. He really was. He was a really, and I used to call, he was so nice to me, and I would call him, and he would tell me racetrack stories, and back in New York during the winter, and he actually had brought me into the boxes to watch the Forego Honest Pleasure.
Oh, cool.
That was the first time I was in the boxes at Belmont, and I watched
Fancy.
that with Ralph, and he brought me in there, and I was always good to see his son. Ralph, who worked with us for many, many years, and many of you know Ralph, but some of you also knew his father, who was a real great part of the fabric of horse racing, and I miss him. But
The
he's been a
characters
long time.
are irreparable.
He was great. He was one of the very close friends with the chief. One of the last of a great breed of horse player and racetrack characters for sure. But he was a good man as well. Anyway, race number 9. We'll take a look at Revel Toast on the dirt for Tom Amoss. Losing a tough one. You didn't win all of them, Tom, but you seem like you won a lot of them. Tom's had just an incredible meet here. And this horse goes over the turf, but there's turf pedigree here. I won't be surprised if this horse can run on the turf.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this one, you just had at least seen the dirt race, and I kind of had the feeling that this one was going to be bet off what was a decent performance in that spot, switching over to this surface. But at the same time, I could easily see this horse winning as well. I have a little bit further down. I thought some others might be a little more intriguing, but I don't have anything majorly against this one.
Where'd you go here?
I went to the firster for Brad Cox, who does actually pretty well in these turf sprints with his 2-year-old first-time starters. Again, not an overabundance of dam side pedigree, but I thought that they paid an okay amount for this one. And Cantharos, he does well with his first-time out horses on the turf in those sprint races. Just
Okay,
kind of
I
a
must
guess.
have looked up the wrong stats.
What did you look up?
2-year-old first-time stars in turf sprints. I have Brad at 2 for 25 with a 56-cent ROI.
Maybe I looked up something wrong.
So
It's completely
I actually
possible.
don't think Brad does well with these things. He's 0 for
Let's
3 at
see.
Saratoga. He does, I think, have a couple of seconds. Actually, his horses ran okay in some of those races. He's Cantharos. Cantharos, obviously, a very effective turf stallion. The dam did win the turf. So listen, it's Brad Cox. He may not win with these things, but he's still Brad Cox, and I'm not going to say I'd be shocked if he got it done. I thought the 3 Doppio Espresso were 10 2/5. Thought it was a fair workout, but this one going out for Ray Handel I thought could be interesting. Ray's been kind of on fire lately. I like Scorch. I think Scorch is the right horse. He was bet off the board last time for Fernando. He didn't have the best of trips in that race towards the inside, which probably wasn't the place to be. I'm going to guess this is the right surface for this daughter, of Yalpon. There's a smidgen of turf pedigree at best. This horse got bet. I'm going to go back to Scorch.
Yeah, I think the money is meaningful whenever you have these 2-year-old races. And just to wrap up on Bella Knows, Brad Cox has only started 3 2-year-olds
Saratoga.
here, but 2 of them have hit the board.
I know, I
so-
said that. But,
yeah, but they were also big prices.
Right, but that's not here. Overall, am I wrong? I have him at 2 for 25 with his 2-year-old firsters and turf sprints.
I didn't look up overall, so probably not.
Okay, so yeah.
So you're probably not wrong by any means, but it's limited here for me to make any sort of assessment to say that he can or can't. But looking at Scorch, I just think the money, as we mentioned, was meaningful. Ran okay first time out. I don't love that there isn't a ton of turf pedigree, but there isn't a ton of pedigree in general in this race. And this horse is one of the ones that makes sense in here. I thought that Gigi Cakes getting onto the turf would be a little interesting, though, a horse that seemed to be well meant first time out. I know Maggie did her 2-year-old report on this one before she debuted in that off the turf spot.
I agree. I thought this horse dangerous as well. I'm always looking at the Tisdale laws. I mean, he is really trying to be an effective sire, but he has got an enormous amount of turf influence. You kind of look back on it, Barkley must think, if I had my chance, I could have run him on the turf. Anyway, Sarah, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Day 35 coming up soon here. Head over to Naira Bets if you're not a member. Use the promo code SPOT200. We'll match the $200 of your initial deposit. Play through Naira Bets, bet any track, anywhere, anytime. We also have a $10 bonus if you're going to be playing Delaware today and Saratoga. Opt in, 50 or more, you get a $10 back. We've got the giveaway on Sunday, the Zip giveaway. Looks like a good one. The quarter zip, is that what it is? Okay. Looking forward to that. That'll be Sunday, a great day of racing you won't want to miss with the Jockey Club Gold Cup being run. That race will be shown on Big Fox at 1:50 that day, so it'll be early. I think we have an 11 o'clock post. I think we have an early post.
I think we do
that
have an
day.
earlier day that day.
And last but not least, we are on from 1 to 6 on FS2. Sarah, thank you again. Thank you for watching. Frank Miramati, 6 days to go, Frank. We'll be hearing from him for the reprise, the Scratched and Changes, after just a few moments.
You bet with Naira Bets. Bet any track, anywhere, anytime. Download the Naira Bets app to play today and get a $200 deposit bonus. Watch live horse racing. Get expert picks. Boost your bankroll with weekly promotions. And hone your handicapping skills with exclusive tips and tutorials. Download the Naira Bets app now. Sign up now to claim your $200 deposit match bonus. You bet with Naira Bets.